Randasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayatu Dhiraye. Bhaktya Vihina Aparara Lakshay Shiptas Chakarmadita Rangamadye Kripamayi Tvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanarabindam Bhajami Radham Aravindam Hitram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram Tato Mamanasti Chatyena Kapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotaras Rashishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotaras Rashishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So we're continuing our Osachi Prabhu. All the ladies are sitting on that side, the men are sitting on this side. So I'm continuing to describe the fourth canto with specific reference to how it sits within the entirety of the Bhagavatam. So we've been more or less stepping up and down the Bhagavatam to accommodate the fourth canto's specialities. So yesterday I was describing the first 4 verses of the first chapter, and then I was describing about Naimisharanya is mentioned in the 4th verse of the 4th chapter, and I was describing its location and how Sutta Goswami had gone across to Sukratal to listen to the conversation between Parikshit and Shukadev. And then he had taken that conversation in his heart and taken it back to the sages in Naimisharanya. Because yesterday we began the Bhagavatam verse was saying Sutta Uvacha. So to put it in context and appreciate the speakers, if we appreciate the speakers and the characters of the speakers, then it gives us a deeper entrance into the entirety of the Bhagavatam. It's very important to appreciate the background. Who is Shukadev Goswami? Who is Parikshit Maharaj? Who is Sutta Goswami? Who is Sonaka? And then who is Maitreya? Who is Vidura? So it's conversation within conversation within conversation. It's very dynamic and very significant to appreciate these different personalities. So today I was thinking how the entirety of the Bhagavatam, it concludes in the 12th canto, of course. This is the conclusion. This is after the Prayojan Tattva, which is the 10th canto. So in the 12th canto, in the 5th chapter, then, is it the 5th or 6th? I think it's the 5th. Then Shukadev disappears. And I just wanted to read a little bit of this 12th canto just to keep us in context with the entirety of the Bhagavatam. Understand? Because yesterday I was reciting the first verses from the first chapter. And just to reiterate, just to remember, in that first chapter, the sages, they're asking twice to Sutta Goswami
how to realize this treasure of the heart, Yatma Suprasidati. They asked this question twice to Sutta Goswami. Sonaka Rishi is asking. And then in the second chapter, this is answered in that beautiful verse in the 6th verse, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma, Yato Bhakti Adhoiksaje, Ahoitiki Apratihata, Yeyatma Suprasidati. This Yeyatma Suprasidati, the satisfaction of the self. And it's been explained by our acharyas that actually satisfaction of the self means satisfaction of supersoul. If supersoul is satisfied, then naturally the self is satisfied. The jivatma will be satisfied. But this verse in particular, why I'm mentioning it, is because this establishes the current throughout of bhakti, which we discussed in reference to the first verse. You following me? That's all right? In the first verse, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given the essence of the Bhagavatam as being Bhakti Devi herself. And Srila Gurudev gives the essence as being Gora Ras, or understanding Sri Gora, the teachings of Gora, Gora Tattva. Secrets of the Bhagavatam, first chapter of the Secrets of the Bhagavatam. He gives a very clear, definitive 5 steps. It's almost in the last chapter of the first chapter of the Secrets of the Bhagavatam. Yeah, now I'm just cutting it short because you already know the first 4, right? I'll go again. Brahman is the first topic. What's the second? Lakshmi Narayan. Third? Madhurya. 4th? Radha and Krishna. 5th? Bhakti Devi. So these are the 5 explanations of the Satyam Paramadimahi. I've said it a number of times, so I wasn't going to go over it completely again. But Gurudev gives a speciality on that. He says the 4th is Sri Radha and the 5th is Gora. Because without Gora, without his mercy, we can't understand the Parakiya Ras in the 10th canto. Not possible, ever, to understand Parakiya Ras without the mercy of Sachinandana Gaurahari. We cannot understand. That's why Mahaprabhu has to advent himself. Advaita Acharya could give so much prem, but Braja Prem, and Braja Prem means appreciating and understanding Parakiya. This is very difficult to understand for educated people, that Krishna is taking other men's wives. This is not a simple understanding. So Mahaprabhu himself comes to establish this tattva of Parakiya Ras. But coming back to what I wanted to speak about was in this 12th canto, we're seeing the entirety of the flow. So that current is satisfying the treasure of the heart. This whole Bhagavatam is in glorification of Vasudeva, and that glorification will satisfy the heart entirely. Every shadow, every doubt, every misunderstanding will be completely cleared by this Bhagavatam. It clears the dense darkness of this age. So right at the very end, in this 6th chapter of the 12th canto, I just want to read a little bit here, just to give us a deeper perspective of the entirety of the Bhagavatam. As you will understand, I'm not going in specifically so deep detail with all the different topics that we're going through. I'm just presenting the topics as has been presented in the Bhagavatam itself. First of all, we presented the genealogical table coming from Swayambhuva Manu, and then we went to Shiva and Sati this past time, and then we went to Dhruva Maharaj, and then we went to Vena yesterday, bad King Vena. And we approached the beginning of Prithu Maharaj, So these are the principal topics within the fourth canto, but I haven't gone extensively to unpack the details of those, so to speak. It's as if they're all zipped in here, and in a different sort of presentation, then we can go through these different topics more significantly. We can take a whole week on Dhruva Maharaj, for example, or a whole week on Shiva and Sati, for example. But I'm just trying to give us a overview, a picture of the Bhagavatam to encourage us that it's not an intimidating 12 volumes that we should run away from, but we should actually associate with it daily. We should hear about the Bhagavatam and all its different aspects, because there's so many aspects to it. So in this 12th canto, Sutta Goswami again is speaking to the sages, and he says, after hearing all that was narrated to him by the self-realized and equipoised Shukadev, the son of Vyasadeva, Maharaj Parikshit humbly approached his lotus feet, bowing his head down upon the sage's feet. The king, who had lived his entire life under the protection of Lord Vishnu, folded his hands in supplication and spoke as follows. So this is very illuminating about the personality of Parikshit, who's asking these questions to Shukadev. His entire life, before his birth in the womb of his mother, was when he had darshan of Vishnu. Parikshit means one who is always examining. One who is always examining everybody. Are you that person I saw in the womb of my mother? Are you that person I saw in the womb of my mother? His whole life is examining all different personalities to see again, will he have darshan of that personality? Maharaj Parikshit said to Shukadev Goswami, I have now achieved the purpose of my life, because a great and merciful soul like you has shown such kindness to me. You have personally spoken to me this narration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who is without beginning or end. So this is more or less like a summary of the whole Bhagavatam. When we go through, when we come into the third canto in particular, because I've already described the first canto are many questions and introductions and the story of the Mahabharata. And then from the very end of the first canto, then Shukadev makes his appearance in that 19th chapter. And then in the second canto, Shukadev begins to speak. But he's not even speaking directly the Bhagavatam verses until that canto has almost finished in the 9th chapter. Then he's speaking those 4 seed verses, those chatushlokis that he received from his father, that Narad received from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is receiving from Vishnu, from Krishna, directly. And then in the 10th, the last chapter of that second canto, he's expressing the topics that are going to be discussed in the Bhagavatam. So I know I've said this almost every day, but it helps just to the repetition, just to give us an impression of the flow, the current. And then in the third canto, the beginning of creation. And this is really what the whole Bhagavatam is unfolding. The third canto is about Lord Brahma creating so many aspects of this universe, and the progenitors and his sons, etc. And finally with Kadama Rishi and Devahuti, or rather with the manifestation of Swayambhuva Manu and his wife, Satarupa. And then coming from this lineage, this is our history, this is our origin, this is what the Bhagavatam is describing from the very beginning of time. Actually, one of the chapters in the third canto is about time, about the creations of time, and its infinitesimal points of time and its vastness of time. So every aspect is being actually laid out for us. What are our origins? How could you miss this Bhagavatam in this life? How could you miss touching it and trying to appreciate it? Because it's the law book, it's the guidebook, it's the manual for this life, to find that treasure of satisfaction of the heart that all jivas are craving. And that's Bhakti Devi. So now Parikshit, he's expressing his gratitude to Shukadeva Goswami. This is another point about association. Without association, it's very difficult to understand these precepts. If you don't have association of a Rasik Vaishnava, then you will just take Gyan from this Bhagavatam. You must have association of that Rasik quarter to actually get the deepest import. Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam sukhamughad amritam dravam samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhua aho rasik. It's saying bhuvi bhavakam. This rasik, thoughtful and intelligent men relish the sweetness of this Bhagavatam, but we cannot without the guidance of that Rasik personality. He says, I do not consider it at all amazing that great souls such as yourself, whose minds are always absorbed in the infallible personality of Godhead, show mercy to the foolish conditioned souls, tormented as we are by the problems of material life. I have heard from you this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the perfect summary of the Puranas, and which perfectly describes the Supreme Lord, Uttama Shloka. My Lord, I now have no fear of Takshaka, or any other living being, or even of repeated deaths, because I have absorbed myself in that purely spiritual absolute truth, which you have realized and which destroys all fear. This fear is described in the third canto as a covering, a coating. It's called one of the nascent engagements that Lord Brahma covers the jiva with. If we're not fearful of death, then our material lives will not be progressive. They won't have any the same significance. But this fear of death, it keeps us bound in this material world. And really, when we appreciate the eternality of the soul, then why should we be afraid of death? What are we afraid of? We're afraid of losing our identity as this person in this body. We're afraid of losing our various material attachments. That's actually the fearful nature of death. It's fearful materially, not spiritually. If we're realized in our spiritual swarup, if we're realized in our spiritual nature, then why should we be fearful of anything in this world? We have nothing to lose. It's just we blank out and take another body. But still we hold on to fear. Whatever we say, whatever the words, we're still fearful. He says, O Brahmana, please give me permission to resign my speech and the functions of all my senses into Lord Adhokshaja. Allow me to absorb my mind, purified of lusty desires within him, and to thus give up my life. You have revealed to me that which is most auspicious, the supreme personal feature of the Lord. I am now fixed in knowledge and self-realization, and my ignorance has been eradicated. This is the result of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Our ignorance will be eradicated. Once ignorance, avidya, is purified, then the true spiritual consciousness of the jiva can rise very easily. So this ignorance is what we're endeavoring to dispel by taking shelter of this Bhagavatam. And then Sutta Goswami says, thus requested the saintly son of Srila Vyasadeva gave his permission to King Parikshit. Then after being worshipped by the king and all the sages present, Shukadeva departed from that place. So this is in the 6th chapter of the 12th canto, where Shukadeva makes his departure. And then Parikshit Maharaj is going to be bitten by that bird, but it's described very clearly that Parikshit Maharaj has already left his body. He's no longer in his body when that snake bird bites. So this is the fruit. And this I'm describing this morning is to give us again the clear conclusion of the Bhagavatam. We've talked about Bhakti Devi, we've talked about Sachinandana Mahaprabhu, we've talked about the 10th canto, etc. But the entirety of the goal of this Bhagavatam is to again awaken our eternal service to Sri Krishna by hearing these topics about Krishna. So today we're hearing about Prithu Maharaj, and we discussed yesterday how the alms of Vena were very quickly churned by the sages, and they produced this wonderful couple of Prithu and Archie. And I'm reading today from a study guide that ISKCON has put out. It's interesting. It's called Bhagavat Subodhini. And they've extracted every part, every sentence of the chapters, and they've created diagrams and so on. They've made it very, very simple if you want to just study it like Gyan. As soon as I picked it up and started to look at it, I realized, well, this is for a Jnani, more or less. It's very, very interesting, and everything... Subodhini? Got it? They have a volume on every canto now, in Rasabihari. Got it? So, this is like the knowledge aspect of the Bhagavad, which certainly is a support for us, but without mentioning these different topics that I've already mentioned today, without mentioning where we're going, without mentioning actually what is pure bhakti, who is Mahaprabhu, how does he explain this 10th canto to us, then we're not going to get really the very heart of the teachings of the Bhagavatam entirely. We'll get something, of course, perhaps we'll get moksha, which is the goal of the Jnanis. But this is a very helpful book. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm just trying to say, according to my understanding, where does it take you? It doesn't take you beyond that. It doesn't take you entirely into the 10th canto with every sentence. So, Prithu and Archie, these are a male. Prithu is a plenary expansion of the power of Vishnu, who maintains the world. The female, Archie, is a plenary expansion of Lakshmi, who is never separated from the Lord. What they've done is just preface the translations, that's all. Nothing's changed in it, it's just prefacing the translations. And then it's describing how the bards, they begin to glorify Maharaj Prithu with many beautiful appreciations. But then Prithu, he stops them. And it's described that seeing the professional bards, the Sutta and Magadas and the Vandis praise him, the greatly powerful Prithu smiled, and with the gravity of thundering clouds spoke as follows: O gentle Sutta, how can these qualities be directed to me, as I have not yet displayed them? So he's demonstrating this quality of humility immediately. This quality of humility is the most essential ingredient to actually go forward in our bhakti. We see in Mahaprabhu's prayers of the Shikshastakam, he only gave us 8 verses, 8 prayers specifically. And there the current of humility is very prominent, especially starting from the 3rd verse, Trinadapi Sunichena, that feeling oneself more humble than a blade of grass. This is essential for this truth to manifest within us. Our path is not arohapanta, climbing up, ascending. Our path is the descending path, this avarohapanta. So we're trying to invoke the mercy to actually inspire within us. What is real humility? Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking less about yourself. You understand? So don't sort of try to demolish yourself thinking, oh, now I'm being humble. But actually just don't think about your own activities, etc., quite so much of the time, and try to become more empathic towards others and respectful towards others, and having that mood particularly focus to Guru and Radha and Krishna, of course. So actually I feel more comfortable with the Bhagavatam itself than this. So and then there's a whole list in this chapter that we're up to. This is chapter 15. There's a whole list of gifts or presentations that are offered to Prithu Maharaj, which are just very interesting. I'll just briefly describe, because they can inspire us to a picture, a vision of this time, these circumstances. So Kuvera gave Prithu a golden royal throne. Kuvera is the treasurer of the demigods. Then Varuna gave an umbrella which sprayed fine water particles brilliant like the moon. And then Vayu gave 2 chamaras. Vayu is in other words, all these demigods are infusing themselves within the personality of Prithu Maharaj. It's described that the king, we were hearing yesterday about Vena, that the king is infused with 8 principal demigods are empowering the king on the planet. So the king is not an ordinary living entity in the same way. He's empowered by the demigods. So Dharma gave a flower garland which would expand his fame. Indra gave an excellent crown. Yama gave a scepter, a punishing rod to rule the world. Brahma gave armor made of spiritual knowledge. Saraswati gave a transcendental necklace. Lord Hari gave his own Sudarshan chakra. Lakshmi gave imperishable opulences. Lord Shiva gave a sword marked with 10 moons. Durga gave a shield marked with 100 moons. Soma gave horses made of nectar. Vishvakam gave a beautiful chariot. Agni gave a bow made of the horns of goats and cows. Surya gave arrows as brilliant as sunshine. Bhumi gave slippers with magical power. The demigods gave flowers again and again. Kechara gave drama, singing and music and the power to disappear. The sages gave infallible blessings. The ocean gave a conch. The seas, mountains and rivers gave a path for his chariot. And the bards gave prayers and praises. So this is the color of the Bhagavatam. It's very grand. It's very beautiful. It's very opulent. So this is also attractive for the jiva in the darkness of this material time of Kali. Hearing all these attractive gifts and qualities that Prithu and Archie possessed are inspiring for us. This is like a cultural inspiration, but similarly it's inspiring towards the mode of goodness. In that mode of goodness then are opportunities to understand transcendental knowledge is enhanced. Without a doubt, if we're not in the mode of goodness, if we're running all the time in the mode of passion, then we don't have time to contemplate on these more valued topics. So then in the 16th chapter, the professional reciters still continue to glorify Prithu Maharaj, even though he's told them not to in his humility. But the sages direct the reciters, no, you keep on reciting his glories. So, pleased by Prithu's humility, the bards continued to praise him for they have a taste for glorifying his activities and were encouraged by the sages. And then King Prithu manifests the qualities of the demigods. Prithu upholds dharma and acts like the demigods. Prithu's actions compared with the demigods. And then there's described various qualities of King Prithu. And then there's a prediction of Prithu's future activities. So all of these, that's a synopsis of this chapter 16. And when Prithu is compared to the various demigods, for example, Suryadev evaporates water for 8 months and then releases the water for 4 months in the monsoon. So Prithu Maharaj, he will exact taxes from the citizens and he releases them in times of need. This is just like Suryadev. And then like Mother Bhumi herself, who tolerates. What is the most difficult or heaviest weight that Bhumi Devi tolerates? Do you know? No. It's described in one of the Puranas that actually a lie is the heaviest burden that Bhumi Devi has to hold, because for a lie, there's no place for a lie to take shelter, because there's no truth in it. And it creates a weight on the earth, on Mother Earth, a lie. If you throw a lie out into the atmosphere, it has nowhere to go, because it has no truth attached to it. So it's just vacantly hanging there. So when all these lies collectively, they form a weight on Mother Earth. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Maharaj explains this. I think it's subjective reality, he explains it. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, these are all heavy burdens for Mother Earth. But the principle of a lie, the actual weight of a lie, is extremely heavy. This is in this age that the leg of truth is challenged. The very final leg of truth is challenged. Then it's described that Indra supplies rain, and Prithu Maharaj, he supplies rain when there is no rainfall and protects the citizens from doubt. This is what we're going to see in his reign. And then there's many other qualities described, and then there's also a list here of just direct qualities. Is this interesting for you? Want to hear about Prithu? So it's described that his activities are very pleasing to the minds of the citizens, who gladly call him Raja. He's very fixed in his vows. He's true to his promise. He's respectful to the Brahmanas. He's rendering service to elders. He's the protector of all beings. He's respectful to everyone. He's kind to the suffering. He's treating other women as his own mother. He's affectionate to his wife as if she were half of his body. He's affectionate like a father to the citizens. He's the servant of the devotees who preach the Lord's glories. He's considering all beings as himself. He's increasing the joy of his friends. He's intimately associating with liberated persons. He's the punisher of the wicked. He's the Lord's Shaktivesh avatar. He's the master of the three worlds. He's changeless, seeing all material varieties as meaningless because of their basic principle of nescience. In other words, he's completely detached. And then it's described, this uniquely powerful king will travel on his victorious chariot with his invincible bow all around the globe, exactly like the sun. All kings and demigods will offer him presentations, and their wives will glorify him, considering him the original king who carries in his hands the emblems of the club and disc. And then it's described how, being an extraordinary king, equal to a Prajapati, he will milk the earth as a cow for the living facility of the citizens. He will level the surface of the earth with his bow, breaking all the hills like Indra. All demonic rogues and thieves will hide themselves when the lion-like King Prithu travels over his kingdom, vibrating the string of his bow. So all these predictions are made at the beginning of his reign. So this is what we're about to hear in the following chapters, actually these predictions manifesting. He will perform 100 Ashwamedha sacrifices, and Indra will steal the sacrificial horse in the 100th sacrifice. He will meet with Sanat Kumara, worship him with devotion, and receive spotless knowledge by which one can enjoy transcendental bliss. Thus King Prithu will always hear about himself and his uniquely powerful activities wherever he goes. With unchecked power, he will conquer the world and eradicate the threefold miseries of the citizens. Both the Suras and Asuras will glorify him. So this is the greatness of this personality, which is very inspiring. And then we come to chapter 17, and this is a description how Maharaj Prithu becomes angry at Mother Earth. Mother Earth, because she was not receiving the proper worship and devotion through yajna, through the sacrifices, because Vena, he banned yajna during his reign. And so as a result of that, Mother Earth, she withholds those grains. And then after the killing of Vena, before the manifestation of Prithu Maharaj, rogues and dacoits inhabited the planet because there was no strong authoritative king. So Mother Bhumi, she continues to withhold the grains, because in Vena's reign there was no yajna, so Mother Earth held the grains there, and then after that there was no proper king, so again Mother Earth is withholding the seeds and herbs, because only by sacrifice are these seeds manifested as their nourishing qualities to the citizens. So it's described that after being enthroned, King Prithu, the protector of the citizens, was approached by the suffering citizens who were starving due to the scarcity of food grains. They informed him of their situation as follows: "We have come to take shelter of you, who are worthy of shelter, the master of our livelihood, protector of the citizens. Therefore, please arrange to satisfy our hunger." Hearing the citizens' lamentation, King Prithu contemplated for a long time and discovered the reasons. Concluding like this, the king became angry, like Lord Shiva, took up his bow and aimed an arrow at the earth. He concluded that the earth was not producing sufficient food grains. Seeing King Prithu with his raised bow, the earth trembled out of fear, and taking the form of a cow, ran away like a deer pursued by a hunter. Seeing this, King Prithu became very angry and chased the cow-shaped earth wherever she fled in the outer space. The earth saw the king with his raised bow behind her in all places. Just as a man cannot escape death, the earth could not escape Prithu. Then she turned to him in helplessness. And then she beseeches him why King Prithu should not kill her. She's telling him that he is the knower of religious principles, Dharma Gyan, therefore the shelter of the surrendered. You are a king and should protect all living entities. I am a poor person, I have not committed any sins. If you kill me, it's like killing a woman. No one strikes even a sinful woman, what to speak of you who are so merciful and affectionate to the poor. I am like a strong boat on which the whole world stands. If you break me to pieces, how will you stop everyone from drowning in the Garbhatak Ocean? So Mother Earth is beseeching like this. Now, Prithu Maharaj, he counter arguments These are his counter-arguments to Mother Earth. He says, "You have disobeyed my orders. Though you accepted your share of the yajna, in return you have not produced sufficient food grains. Although you eat grass daily, you are not filling your milk bag. Therefore punishing such an offender is not unsuitable. You foolishly do not deliver the seeds of plants formerly created by Brahma, which are now hidden within you." And then he says, "You ask me how I can kill a cow, how I can feed. I will kill you and chop you up into small pieces, and I will feed all your flesh to the citizens. I shall cut you, and your flesh shall pacify the hungry, stricken citizens. You have said that I cannot kill a woman. A king may kill a cruel person, a man, woman, or eunuch, who is interested only in self-maintenance and is merciless. That is not actually considered killing. You have said, how will you hold them up in the water?" And Prithu Maharaj replies, "You are false, proud, and an insane cow. I shall cut you into small pieces, and I will support the entire population by my mystic powers." So this is the exchange that Prithu Maharaj is having with the terrified Mother Earth. And then Mother Earth, she understands, and she now in the next chapter she is going to instruct Prithu how to milk her for all these ingredients. Now we're up to the 18th chapter, which is described as Prithu Maharaj milks the earth planet. So I'm going quite quickly through here, but you're getting a picture. You're getting something of the essence of the whole pastime. We've only got a few days to actually cover the whole 4th canto, but I just want you to get some seed of it. So now Prithu was still not pacified by the prayers of the earth, and his lips trembled in great anger. The frightened earth made up her mind and spoke. "Please control your anger and hear patiently what I say. I may be very poor, but a learned man takes the essence of knowledge from all places like a bumblebee. The great sages have prescribed proper methods by which people can attain prosperity in this life and the next. By faithfully following such methods, even an inexperienced person can easily attain his desired results. But if a foolish person ignores such methods and acts independently, he will remain repeatedly unsuccessful." And then Mother Earth begins to describe that these herbs were kept within her because of Venu's restriction of the sacrifices and because of the population of the thieves, etc. And now she's saying, "All the grain seeds have been stored within me for a long time. Therefore you should immediately retrieve them with the standard method prescribed by the acharyas and shastras, which I will explain to you. The standard method is, if you desire to relieve the living entities with sufficient food, you should make arrangements for a calf suitable for this purpose, and a pot and a milkman to milk me. Being very affectionate towards the calf, I will produce the desired milk suitable for the living beings. And you should also make me level, so that the rainwater coming from Indra's grace will remain on the surface even after the rainy season has passed. This will keep the earth always moist. This will be auspicious for all kinds of food production." So Prithu Maharaj became satisfied on hearing the method to actually again satisfy the citizens. After hearing the pleasing and beneficial words of the earth, the king accepted them. He made Swayambhuva Manu, the calf, and milked all the herbs and grains into his own hands. So now this description is completely achintya. Actually, this whole pastime is extraordinary. First of all, we have to appreciate that Mother Earth has turned herself into a cow, and Prithu Maharaj is, threatening to actually kill the earth. And now Mother Earth is suggesting that she becomes milked. So this is allegorical as well as it's a reality. Swayambhuva Manu does come and manifest as a calf, and Prithu Maharaj does milk all the herbs and grains into the palms of his hands. And then it's described that so many other personalities, they come forward and they have their pot and they have their calf and they also milk the earth. So it's described that the sages came forward and they had Brihaspati became the calf and the senses became the pot for carrying, and the Vedic hymns were the milk that came from Mother Earth. And then the demigods, they made Indra the calf, and they brought a golden pot, and they brought the Soma nectar, this nectar of immortality came. And then the dietas, they brought Prahlad as the calf, and then they had an iron pot, and in that pot was liquor. And then it goes through so many of the different personalities that they're milking Mother Earth. It's very interesting to appreciate this. And then Prithu, he makes the earth flat. He, by breaking up the hills with the strength of his bow. And for the citizens of the state, King Prithu was as good as a father. He supplied proper subsistence and suitable residences. Actually, it's described here that Prithu is the first person to develop town and city planning. He made the whole surface of the world so it could function easily. He founded many villages, towns, cities, forts, residences for cowherdsmen, cowsheds, military camps, mines, agricultural towns, and mountain villages. Towns and city planning began from the time of King Prithu. Before that, people lived here and there without fear, according to their own convenience. So this is the coming down in the ages. So Prithu is setting the map for Treta Yuga. In Satya Yuga, they would just live under a tree, and the corn, etc., grains would grow by itself, and the fruits would just drop by themselves. This was the nature in Satya Yuga, but in Treta Yuga, Varnashram system was manifested, and with that Varnashram system came the planning of cities and towns, etc. So King Prithu, he's the instigator of this. And now it's described in the next chapter, which is 19, that Prithu performed 100 horse sacrifices. He wanted to perform, this was his intention, to perform 100 horse sacrifices. But actually, Indra came and stole the sacrificial horse, because Indra was the only other person who had performed 100 horse sacrifice. And Indra was feeling very threatened by Prithu Maharaj. He was feeling that King Prithu would actually want to take his post as Indra, king of the Devas. So in fear of that, he stole the sacrificial horse. And it's described that I'll read this part. When Prithu was performing the last Ashvamedha Yajna, envious Indra, invisible to everyone, stole the sacrificial horse in the dress of a heretic, which made people think adharma to be dharma. So when these acts actually happen by these higher personalities, it makes such a deep impression in the consciousness of the Earth planet itself that these take forms later on. So these heretics would actually become manifested on the Earth later as a result of Indra stealing the horse. And then Atri Muni saw this situation and informed the king, the son of King Prithu, of Indra's trick. Prithu's son immediately followed Indra in anger to kill him. Seeing Indra in the fraudulent dress of a sannyasi with matted locks and smeared in ashes, Prithu's son considered him a religious person and did not release his arrows. When Prithu's son returned, Atri again instructed, "Kill the destroyer of sacrifice, Indra, lowest of all demigods." Thus Prithu's son immediately began to chase Indra again, who was fleeing in the sky in great haste, just as the king of vultures, Jatayu, chased Ravan. Indra immediately gave up his false dress as well as the horse and disappeared from that very spot. Prithu's son, the great hero, brought back the horse. Seeing this great act, the sages named him Vijitashva, who was he who has won the horse. But powerful Indra stole the horse again by creating a dense darkness in the sacrificial arena. Thus Vijitashva chased Indra again, whom Atri pointed out in the sky. But seeing Indra again in the dress of a sannyasi carrying a staff with skull on top, Vijitashva still did not kill him. Again, ordered by Atri, Vijitashva angrily aimed an arrow to kill Indra. Seeing this, Indra gave up that horse and the false dress and became invisible. And it's describing now the results of these false sannyasi attires. That whatever different forms Indra accepted for stealing the horse became symbols of sins, and people who accepted those forms became known as Pakandas or Pasandis. While Indra adopted those false sannyasi dresses, people's minds became attracted to such disguises, thinking that they, in the form of going naked, wearing red garments and speaking skillfully, were enacting real dharma. So now, Lord Brahma, he comes and he checks King Prithu, because again, Lord Indra comes, and this time Prithu himself is going to kill Indra. But the sages, they quickly stop him. No, if you kill Indra during this sacrifice, this will completely nullify the whole sacrifice, because no one else can be killed in the sacrifice except the sacrificial animal. So then the sages said, "We will call Indra and we will offer him in sacrifice to the fire. By our mantras we will call him and we will finish this situation this way." And then they begin to chant those mantras that will drag Indra into the sacrificial fire. But then Lord Brahma, he appears and he tells them to stop, the priests to stop this, that Indra is part of the Lord's body. And this yajna is meant to satisfy the demigods, and they are all part of Indra's body. You understand? So they can't kill Indra. And then he said, you should observe that Indra's attempts to obstruct the sacrifice resulted in disruption of dharma. If you oppose him any further, he will further misuse his power and introduce many other irreligious systems. Therefore, let there only be 99 sacrifices for Prithu Maharaj. And this is a wonderful teaching that Prithu Maharaj, he becomes surrendered to the words of Lord Brahma, and he agrees just to perform a 99 horse sacrifice instead of the auspicious 100, just to be tolerant, show his tolerance towards Indra. And then Lord Brahma is saying that what you have gained by performing more sacrifice, what is to be gained by performing more sacrifices if you know the path of liberation? In other words, you're already self-realized. Why do you need to have this extra horse sacrifice? Both you and Indra are parts and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, you should not be angry with Indra, who is not different from you. Do not worry about the incomplete sacrifice. The angry mind of a person who meditates on that which is thwarted by providence enters into dense darkness of materialistic thought. So then he's convinced to make peace with Indra, which he does, and at that time the sacrifice becomes completely successful. And at that time it's described that it's not described, but in the next chapter it's described that Lord Vishnu appears in the sacrificial arena. This is chapter 20. So we may not get through this whole Prithu Maharaj. I wasn't planning. I was planning to take it in 2 days. But are you following something by my reading? It's not boring or anything? Not tedious? Okay, so I'll just do one more chapter. And then this chapter is entitled Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena. This is chapter 20. Raghunath, this is chapter 20 now. Yes. So, Lord Vishnu instructs Prithu. He says, please forgive Indra. Knowledgeable and detached persons are not malicious towards others and are not carried away by Maya. So these are instructions for us. Prithu Maharaj is a self-realized soul. Knowledge of the soul and supersoul make one unaffected by the modes. This angry mood is being generated by the modes of nature. So one who is in knowledge of the soul and supersoul is unaffected by the modes. He serves me by occupational duties and attains peace and perfect vision. He's talking about Indra. Understanding the soul's real position makes one eligible for liberation. Protect the citizens and derive resultant benefits. I am pleased with you. Ask any benediction. And then Prithu, he responds. Prithu accepts the instructions, and Indra begs forgiveness.